Today's episode of Running It Back is here. It's ready. You are going to find it very interesting. Today on the show, Carolyne Whelan joins me. She's the editor of the magazine Adventure Cyclist. She is a cyclist, and we went to college together. And we haven't spoken since, so we got to catch up and to find all about her upbringing, how she got into cycling, and what she's doing now, what she enjoys about it. Before we get to the episode, don't forget, if you're new to the YouTube channel, give it a subscribe, give it a like, and check out all my previous videos. There's a lot up there, and the channel has gained a lot of steam in the last couple weeks. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. There's a lot there. My Sunday Night Talk series wrapped up a few weeks ago. My movie series, Opening Scenes, has its latest episode up there as well. Not to mention all my stand-up clips are on there too, so check it out. Today on the show, Carolyne Whelan. She is at Roadside Fires on Instagram. She is the editor of the magazine Adventure Cyclist, and we went to college together. This is my interview with her. So here is me and Carolyne Whelan. Joining me today is Carolyne Whelan. She is the editor of the magazine Adventure Cycling. She is at Roadside Fires on Instagram. Most importantly, Carolyne, we went to college together.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. Wow, what a school to have ended up at, right?
It really was where our paths crossed there at this school, along with like so many others. But yeah, you and I, the further I get away from it, the more unique I realize that how that college experience was, how different of an educational setting it actually was. Like I said, like, you know, we crossed paths in college or where we first met. Your name is Carolyne Whelan. However, I know you as Buttercup.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And I never asked how you got that nickname. I think, do you still go by that? Because I see on your Instagram, you have parentheses BC next to your name.
I still have a lot of friends in Santa Fe. And so, they call me BC and still introduce me to other people as BC or Buttercup. I interestingly had that nickname when I was in high school, from like one of my friend circles, and I was never really explained why, but I think it's because I grew up outside of Boston, and being a relatively like cherubesque, round-faced, pretty like sweet demeanored person from Boston, which is, you know, there's a lot of personalities there, that I think that it was kind of a like, not a jab, but my other nickname was Spike, because I played hockey.
Wow.
And I wore a Spike bracelet. And so it was like Spike in some circles, Buttercup in other circles. And then I wrote a zine and my pen name was Gingivitis. And so I had like all these different identities. And then when I moved to college, the very first day, I was walking around with a friend who I won't mention, and is a really lovely person, but was high on mushrooms. And I was
That's not
totally
the college I
sober.
know. Oh, wait a second.
Yeah. Totally high on mushrooms, and we were walking around the photography building, and there are these flowers growing. And so I put my face into the flowers to smell, and she was like, "You're just like a little Buttercup," and then introduced me to everybody. Or I think at that point I was like, "Oh, did you know that people called me that at home?" And then she introduced me to everybody as Buttercup. And I tried to shake it a few times and it didn't work. And so I finally like leaned into it a little bit, and at a certain point was like, I'm an adult. Could I at least be like BC or something, to not be this like child nickname? So that's how it ended up being more BC than Buttercup. But still, there's people who knew me from those days, and I feel like it's kind of like a claiming of ownership, even from my like childhood friends. They call me BC or Buttercup just to be
Mm.
like, I knew you from a
Oh.
long time back. And it warms my heart because it's like a feeling of home in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, take it from someone who's never liked the nickname Pat, but pretty much had to get used to that from the age of 10 on. It's like, you're going to be called this. So I get it. I get it in the sense like you cannot choose your nickname. You never get to choose it. Like, can I be called Thin Waist Cool Hair? No, you're going to be Pat.
Yeah.
And your friends that want to make fun of you, they're going to call you Patty to rub it in extra hard. That's unusual that the nickname had like 2 rounds. Like you had it in the high school and then it found its way back to you in the college years as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that just is your name deep down. That is how you're known to the world.
Deep down a Buttercup. Yeah.
Well, I have so many questions, but I want to start from the beginning. Carolyne, where are you from? You said you're from Boston. How long did you live there? Or did you always live there?
Well, I'm not my family's from Boston, but I'm not from Boston. I grew up in the suburbs just south. My family's from Charlestown, and I grew up in Hull in my younger years, and then we moved to Hingham. And so that's like, Hull is this little 10-mile long, 1-mile wide peninsula on the Boston Harbor. And then Hingham is like the town above that's like just south of Quincy. So, and that's where I grew up. And then I moved out when I was like 17 or 18, as soon as I graduated high school, and then moved to Santa Fe.
How was growing up in Boston? What was the experience like?
It was fine.
There was a pause in there.
Yeah. Our connection, I remember early on being about bikes. You were into like road biking and stuff, and that's like the first conversations that we had. That's how I remember you. And the first cyclist that I met that was in my high school who rode bikes for recreation, not for transportation, was this kid in my high school, and I didn't know anybody else who was into bikes. And I didn't understand the concept of a sport, and I thought that it was so weird and cool that there was somebody who actually like did that and was into it and had a nice bike and wore like cycling jerseys. All of my experience with bikes was from the bikes that I got at garage sales and then fixed up, and the bike messengers that first I saw around town and were like the cool people, and then ended up being like part of my friend circle, and riding my bike from the suburbs into the city, and then just like hanging out and getting all over the place. So I really like that aspect. I don't think that I am really that much of a Massachusetts person at heart. I could see myself moving back there at some point potentially if I needed to, but it's a bit of a condensed community. Right now I live in Montana, and this is like, I like being able to look out and see mountains, have a sense of community, but not be like drowning in community, I guess, where like you can't escape people and have a moment to breathe. And there's a lot of hostility, and I feel like on part of it, it's a lot of people who have strong emotions that don't have the space to just like process what they're going to, because it's just so many people on top of one another, and a lot of people who are like, and all of like your family and everybody, you end up living in a gigantic city and still know everybody in it, and it can be a little oppressive is a strong word, but a little suffocating maybe.
I never thought of it like that. It kind of jargons a memory of mine. Like, I've lived in a bunch of cities now. I lived in big open spaces, mainly in the West, and I've lived in big cities. And like, as soon as I get to one place, I feel like I want to go to the other place. Like, oh, this city it's got a lot of action, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of communities. There's a lot going on. I need some space. And then I get out into the space, and you're like, I wonder what's going on over there. Maybe it's just part of like who we are. We just constantly fight it. But I do like what you're saying. You're like, I like the space. I like being able to breathe. I like being able to get out and away from things when you need to. It is a different mindset. So you're in Montana now? How long
Mm-hmm.
have you been there?
And I will say, I was just in Mexico City a couple of weeks ago, and I had that same experience that I was like, my partner was like, "Do you miss being back in the city?" Because I had moved here from Pittsburgh and was living in New York City before then, and I was
Mhm.
like, I do kind of miss just having this like human chaos all around and all of
Yeah.
this like hustle and bustle and so much opportunity. And then got back to Montana and was like, oh right, that's why I live here.
Oh yeah.
And
So you did
uh,
appreciate it when you got back. You felt good about it.
I think that it makes my personal bristles go up, and I can feel my personal walls standing. And I, on a like selfish level, think that I can be my best person when I live in a place where
Mhm.
I can just take a moment to breathe and go for a walk in nature. And maybe that's why I project onto why other people are so like, there can be a lot of tension. But for me personally, I like being out here because I notice that I relax when I'm out here and that I can take like the breath and space that I need.
Yeah. What were you growing up in Boston? What were you like as a kid?
Uh, I was, as a little kid, I was the kind of kid that was fine just like playing by herself and just like entertaining myself with toy trucks and my little big wheel and things like that.
Mhm.
Uh, my one of my early memories, I had a like superhero complex, which I think a
Oh.
lot of kids do, but I was pretty sure that I was so strong that if I were to punch the wall in my house, that it would knock the house down. And so I was very careful to not lose my temper and punch any walls. And
Wow.
there was
Did
a flood in the house, or there was a flood in the town because we lived, like I said, in this little peninsula. And uh, I really wanted to like swim across the street to save the neighbors on the other side, and my parents had to convince me that they did not need to be saved and that they didn't want to come over to our side of the street. And my older sister had her bicycle stolen, and she was 4 years older than me, so I was in kindergarten, and it got stolen by this older kid. And I found the bike and found him and challenged him to a fight and got my ass kicked pretty readily. And my grandmother had to like pull me out of the fight because I wouldn't let up. And but I got the
Really?
bike back,
Oh,
and
wow.
we never had any problems with them after that. But
So you got in a
from like
fight with an older boy,
yeah,
got beat up,
and that
got the bike. Your grandma, I would even say if I was you, Caroline, I was like, my grandma had to break up the fight. I would leave
yeah.
out the I got beat up part. Like my grandma had to break up the fight and I got the bike back. Wow. So maybe the Spike nickname is actually making more sense here.
Yeah, it's
So
like
you
a
had a
tale of
little
two
wild
cities.
streak to you early on.
Yeah, yeah. And I got into like a fair amount of fights that I
Did you
think that there's
really?
fight.
I would have never have guessed
Yeah,
this.
I know it's the buttercup. It like covers it
The
all up.
buttercup. Yeah.
But um I think that they were all fights of uh
Passion?
they're like dignity battles, I would say.
Oh,
Dignity
interesting.
battles. Like I got into some fights with in like first or second grade, there's this boy that was getting made fun of, and I stood up for him, and then everybody said that I had a crush on him, and I was like, it's just not right to pick on him. And then I had to beat up everybody that said that I had a crush on him.
You're
And
like this
then
vigilante superhero.
yeah,
But then you
I
end
would
up
say maybe
beating the
more than a
townsman up too.
yeah, more than a superhero complex. I think maybe it was just a vigilante complex.
How many siblings did you have?
Just one,
Yeah,
just
the one
one.
older
What?
sister.
Yeah, yeah.
What do your parents do?
My mom was a public school teacher, and my dad was a state cop, and he worked for the dark side, they called it. So he was a forensics photographer and did
Oh, wow.
undercover work. He was like living with this guy that had ratted out this murderer. And while they were like protecting the rat while they were getting evidence and
Really?
like that
Wow.
kind of
Dad was like
thing.
Serpico.
Kind of, yeah. It's hard for me to think about that now because now they're just like retirees who live in Florida and we get into political arguments. So it's
Oh.
like to me now they're just like parents, but I guess they've always just been parents who just also had this like other side, just like I always had that other side.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's interesting. You had your public school teacher mom and the law enforcement dad. I get the sense of where your fight or flight persona could come from. Then, don't you think? Like you could be like,
Yeah.
would you describe Boston as like a tough town to grow up in too, or a
I
tough
mean,
region? Don't you think that could attribute some of it to it?
Hull, yes. Hingham, no. Although I got
Mhm.
into more fights in Hingham. Uh, the kid that I beat up, that was in Hull. The like that first one that I talked about. Hull was pretty rough. The reason that we moved out of there is because my gym teacher was arrested for dealing drugs during my gym class,
During gym
and
class. Wow.
during gym
To
class.
who?
I don't know, but I do have a very distinct memory of walking into the gym class because he would just like let us play duck duck goose for the whole gym class and he would disappear. And so at one point I was like, we're bored of playing duck duck goose, we want to play a different game. And so I went into his office to get one of those red gym bouncy balls, and he just had like stacks of money and being like, I don't know what this is. I've never seen stacks of money before. And then like being like, get the ball. And so I like went the ball and played. And then it was like not long after that that he got arrested during gym class. And
Whoa.
um yeah.
Like I had a lot of bad gym teachers, but none of them were dealing drugs, I would say. So maybe I've been a little overly harsh on my gym teachers. Someone should do like a reality show and it would be called Drug Dealer or Gym Teacher. And then we have to like we just get to look at them and you just kind of have to guess what you think. Cause I remember I had gym teachers and just being like terrified of the gym teacher. Like, are they going to make us wrestle? Are they going to make us climb the rope? Are they going to just stare at? I remember I had a gym class and you'd go change clothes and we get into the gym and the gym teacher's shooting some free throws on the basketball court. I was like, okay, class is going to start when we change. We get out there and now he has moved to the 3-point line and he's shooting shots and we're getting the ball and giving it back to him. Like class is probably going to start pretty soon. And then he starts moving to different spots of the court to shoot jump shots. And then at some point we go, oh, this is the class. He just wants us to rebound for him for 45 minutes. And then every once in a while, a kid would get the ball and he would shoot a shot. And then the gym teacher would lose his stack. He'd be like, what are you doing? Like, what is this gym? What is this class? Who is this person that is someone's quote unquote educating the youth? And I'm like, this is just wild. Every gym teacher is nuts. And I get the feeling every gym teacher has a dark story or past that we'll never know about. Only like one older kid knows about, and he'll only tell you a little bit about it. So maybe it rings true. Maybe your gym teacher could have been up there too, with just of the craziest people in the country teaching gym class.
He was really like the truest gym teacher,
Hmm.
but it was like a when keeping it real goes wrong kind of thing.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Describe your gym teacher's attire. Like, what would he wear to gym
Oh,
class?
so it took us a few years after this to move out. So this is like an early memory. So I'm having to really like reconstruct it in my mind. I remember there being red because red is a favorite color, and I forget if he would wear like white shorts and a red shirt or vice versa,
Hmm.
and that he had kind of like a I was gonna say like a middle-aged punch, but I'm middle-aged now. So he had,
Yeah.
just like the gym teacher carry on basketball
Mm.
and was kind of
Carry on basketball
balding.
is a good way of describing it.
Yeah, thank you. he was kind of balding with sandy blonde hair, and I remember him having like a whistle around his neck,
Mm.
which is also, and he was white. Um, I feel like I'm describing some kind of cartoon character also, and so I
Right.
wonder if I just like plugged in a cartoon version because my brain was so fixated on like the weird things that it couldn't make sense of, but then
Yeah.
like to fill in the character, it was just like a character from some cartoons I saw once and put in. Like
Right.
what was that guy from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, the neighbor?
I don't know. I don't know
Um
that cartoon you're describing.
it's there's like a neighbor from New Jersey who lives next to the Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and in my head, that is kind of what the gym teacher looked like, except with sandy blonde hair and no mustache.
My gym teacher always wore sweat shorts, not sweatpants, sweat shorts. And he would always have like a bold colored t shirt. So he'd have like the purple sweat shorts and maybe a blue big oversized. And like, I hope you're sitting down. Overweight gentleman. Uh, big
Wow.
guy, always the ball cap and like straightforward, clean ball cap, a little bit on the tall side, and just like always stared at you right in the eyeballs, and gave you like instructions, and always had like a clean pair of basketball shoes on, like ready for action, but like he's not going to do any real physical expenditure, but always
Yeah.
had those gym clothes on. And just like, I don't think I ever saw him in anything other than those clothes for like the 4 years I went to middle school. That was his gym clothes, sweat shorts, was
Yeah.
his look. And it was just like terrifying, just being terrified of this guy. Like he's going to yell at me or something, or if I don't get the rebound right, just being scared to death of teachers in those days was like most of the existence in middle school.
They had some outsized power for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, Considering like now that we are the age that teachers are, and I think that that goes true for any adult really, that when you're a kid, you think that adults uh, have some kind of reason to have the authority and power that they have, and then you're an adult and you're like, not only am I kind of an idiot, everybody else is like more of an idiot, which
Yeah.
isn't saying that much. Like none of us
Oh
really
yeah.
know what we're doing. We're just doing the best we can because we're the people who now have to do stuff.
Yeah.
And
I
when
thought the
you're a
same thing.
kid, then you think that there's a reason for adults to be in power other than just like the progression of the illusion of time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought adults had it all figured out. I thought you hit 34 years old and you figured it all out. You knew how to pay bills, own a house, drive a car, raise a family. But remember, as a kid, you would just give every adult the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, yeah, he works at UPS. He's 42 years old. He drives a car with one spare tire on it. He's doing pretty good. That guy's got
Oh
it figured
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. That guy's doing all right. Like, there's no way he's upside down on a mortgage or he's lost a couple marriages. There's no way. He's good. He's all right.
And even if they did, I think that like when you're a kid, there's no, just like you only have like the childhood that you have, and so there's not that much of a concept in the moment of like this is a weird thing to be happening.
Yeah.
You meet an adult who like another weird thing was the candy store down the street from us was also busted for selling heroin, and that was just like a thing that sometimes happens to candy stores, and like some adults are drug dealers, and
Huh.
like like you learn things and then you go to like the convenience store instead. But it didn't seem like these adults are messing up or they're
Hmm.
not doing adult wrong. It's just like they chose a different kind of adult, and like this is just something that happens sometimes. But
Yeah.
they were still successful by nature of being adults in this
Right.
like weird way. And I kind of wish that we could like have that back, that when you're a kid you think that like, without getting too deep into it because you're too young to go deep, but I feel like I had this idea that just by making it to adulthood, you had like you were doing okay. And then we hit adulthood and we're like, we've made it to adulthood and nobody's doing okay. And
Yeah.
it would be great to just get back to that mentality of like, well, like I still have all my fingers.
Hmm.
That's like pretty good. I didn't lose any. I didn't lose any organs. Nothing has been harvested. I have all my fingers.
Yeah.
Everything is like pretty okay.
Yeah.
Doing
Yeah.
all
At
right.
what age? Yeah. I was always expecting like, at what age do I hit? And then Okay, and then I got everything down. I got everything kind of figured out, ducks in a row, and then I just will become an adult from here on. That maybe that's why
Yeah.
back in the day, like young people looked older back in the day. You ever see someone who's like, you see like a man, he's got the withered face, he's got the button down shirt, his pants are up to here, and like he was 34. Like, what? He looks like my
Yep.
grandpa. It's like, oh, times are tougher. People aged. Who knows? It's hard to describe it.
Like the cast of Cheers, they were in their like mid-30s. George Costanza, 29. Roseanne and Dan Barr, they were like early 30s. And you and I, having had like an athletic past, maybe we're like a bit more on like the healthy spectrum. But yeah, people looked haggard.
They
early.
did. Yeah. There was a lot of smoking also from our youth that I remember. I was telling someone I remember, this is how old I am. I remember restaurants had smoking and non-smoking sections and tables would have ashtrays on the table. And then you would I would play with it as a kid. I was like, oh, look at this. Like, it'd be like, it'd have the restaurant's name on it, or it would have something. I'd be like, oh, cool ashtray. Or like, you would make like pottery class. As a kid, you would make an ashtray for your mom or something.
Oh yeah, for sure. But Pittsburgh still has smoking in bars, and they only got rid of smoking in restaurants like 5 years ago, and it was a big fight.
Wow.
Yeah, like people were really upset, and some bars cut down the cost of their food enough that it made it so that they were no longer profiting off selling food, just so that they could keep smoking inside.
Wow, a commitment
and this
to
is
smoking.
in like 2019.
Whoa. Wow, people love smoking.
Love smoking.
Tell us all the dangers of smoking. We don't care. We love smoking.
It is cool. It is cool.
It's cool. I'm not gonna deny that. Who's your favorite smoker in all of entertainment history? Who's like, remember how like some people would like when you were a little kid, like they would hold it cool, or they would like shoot it out, like when they're done with it. I was like, looks so cool. I never got into smoking, but times like I did, I was like, I got to remember to flick it when I'm done. That way I'm cool.
Yeah.
I would give mine John Travolta. I'm thinking of a couple like he would hold it like this or something. It would look very theatrical the way he would hold the cigarette. My favorite smoker.
Do you think that he smokes in real life?
That's a good question. I would think he's at least smoked enough in real life to like know what to do or like make a creative judgment on how to do it. So I would think he must have in real life at some point, maybe in the 70s when smoking was just a thing. So maybe then would be my guess. He must have.
I also like to think that he never actually smoked a cigarette, and that's why he was like, you do it like this, huh? This is how you smoke a cigarette.
That's true too. Yeah. He could have method smoked.
Yeah, he was a method smoker.
I also like the one guy in every movie where the cigarette dangles off his lower lip and somehow never falls off his lip.
That's mine. Like Columbo. I feel like Columbo was a smoker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Paul Newman, did he smoke in Cool Hand Luke?
I think there's some smoking in from Paul Newman. I just watched The Color of Money, and I think he did some good smoking in that 80s movie.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if there's anything and Paul Newman does it, then I'd say that Paul Newman is like my favorite of that.
Smoking and salad dressing. Two big hits. 2 for 2, Paul Newman.
2 for 2.
What
can't he do?
What can't that man do? Paul Newman, great smoker, great salad dressing. All right, so where does cycling come into? Because I just sort of assumed it was college age-ish, but for you it was before then.
I'm one of those losers that like never stopped cycling. I had a big wheel and then a bike with training wheels, and then I got the training wheels off, and I rode that until I got like a BMX style bike, and then my like mountain adulty bike, and then I bought my first bike at college. So that the bike that I had in college
was the first bike college
I bought new, but I had always ridden up until then, and I would like buy bikes to like re-up them at like thrift stores and stuff like that, or not thrift stores, at yard sales, and then
Hmm.
fix them up. And that's how I learned how to fix bikes, because I would go to the bike shops and they would be like, well, this isn't worth fixing. And I'd be like, well, I'm a child and I don't have money to buy a new bike. So then I learned how to fix it myself.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so it's always been in my life in some capacity.
So you got your like first bike when you were in college
My
in
first, like,
in Santa Fe, where we went to college? What
hmm
store?
yep. I went to, uh, the,
Because there was
it
a
was,
few of them. I mean, I worked at a few of them too. There was the one right
yeah,
across the street from the college that was called Robin Charlie's. I worked there my
that's where I
freshman.
worked.
Yeah, I worked there my freshman year. And that's where you worked there too.
hmm
What
hmm
years were you there? It must have been after me. I only worked there a year.
I, it was after I worked there, 2000, I guess 2002 through 2004. So like
Oh,
beginning
I
of
see.
2002, 2004. Yeah. So probably right after you.
Yep, I worked
Um,
there. That was my college job for a year, and it was chaos. That's where it was chaos when I worked there.
totally chaos.
It
It was
was
weird, a
it
weird
was
spot.
weird. It was a weird store. And then I worked at New Mexico Bike and Sport, which is up the road a little bit, for probably
hmm
another year as well there. So, which store was it you got your bike from, and what did you get?
It was the one that was downtown. It has since either moved or closed.
Hmm.
Um, and I forget the name. It was a name similar to Bike and Sport, but it was like Mountain Mountain Sport or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And I got a Jameis Durango,
Oh, nice.
and yeah, I loved it. It was so fun. I had never been mountain biking or really knew about mountain biking as a concept or a sport, but they had mountain bikes and were asking me about the kind of riding I want to do, and I knew that there were arroyos, and so I was like, oh, I want a bike that I can ride anywhere with, because that is the kind of
Hmm.
riding that I'm used to. I grew up in a town that had a lot of like wilderness that I would cut through, but I was also next to the city, and so I would ride into the city and be hopping up and down curves and stuff and cutting
Hmm.
through cars. And so I wanted a bike that I could ride on pavement to get places, and a bike that I could like cut through a dirt neighborhood. And
Hmm.
so I ended up with the Jameis Durango because it could do anything
Yeah.
poorly, but it handled really well, and I had it for all those 4 years. So
Hmm.
good bike. It was a good bike.
I got into cycling. I was about 15, and I was into mountain biking. This is like the mid 90s. And people forget, like, mountain biking was like quote unquote extreme of a sport. Like you could
Mm-hmm.
go ride on dirt trails, but there weren't a lot of trails. You had to go find these trails and you go ride them. And then someone would always have a story of how they broke their bike on the trail and fixed it on the trail. And you're like, wow, wow. But then I realized as I got older, or like in my 20s, there was a real definite divide between mountain bikers and road bikers. It was like these were the haves and these were the have-nots. And mountain biking was almost like punk rock, because you would like go and you didn't have to wear like all the clothing. You just went and you found it. And eventually, the worlds meld and you realize, oh, I can do both. You can actually enjoy both. You have to choose a side. But it was so funny how mountain biking came all this full circle, where like mountain biking was like the fringe. It was like this is what the outcasts do, who are tired of riding the road all the time. You go find your trails. And road was like the
Yeah.
button down, the white collar one. It was so funny. Like you're like, do you mountain bike or road? Road. Or do you
Yeah.
mountain? And then the other like, it was
I I
such an
remember going
odd
into bike and
definition.
sport, and there being like mountain bikers, but like with like sports sunglasses,
Hmm.
and then being like, oh, I thought that mountain biking wasn't what I thought it was, because I completely agree. That is a perfect assessment of the difference between the sports. And I found Dirt Rag magazine, and that was
All
like
right.
the
Mm-hmm.
punk rock cycling magazine, and I was
Right.
like, all
Right.
right, these are my people. This is what I want to do.
Right.
I still want to live in a city and do like city riding, but I want to do it like the mountain bikers, not like the roadies.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody gets into cycling, you kind of find your own family within the cycling universe. And some people, will like do lots of different ones, and some people are like, no, this is the one I like. And just there's so many facets to it now. Or like this would be it too. The mountain bikers will look down on the racers, like, oh, do you race? And it would be like, yeah, I race. Like, not me, man. I'm not gonna pay to ride my bike. It was a lot of that. It was like, okay, yeah, I get it. Everyone had a good angle to what they have like so chose their life. I knew one guy. I worked at a store in Texas where I grew up, and he was our resident hippie guy. And his form of riding was like, I'm gonna go in the desert for 2.5 days, and that was his riding. And he would come back and tell you this. He would do it with a pair of jeans. And he was just like, I'm coming back in 2 days. And he would tell you about it. And that's what he liked to do. I don't know what was going on with that guy, to be honest. But that was how he enjoyed his bike and his riding. And sometimes he would like tinker and he would invent these little wheels and stuff. And it was like, oh, that's cool. And everybody would come to the bike store. So I think that's where I got the melding is like you would talk to the racers. You would talk to the mountain bikers. You would talk to the crazy, wacky hippies who went to the desert. And you just sort of like got a little bit of everybody. And then you sort of found your own way from there. So you were a bit like that, do you think? You were like more the go out and find an adventure type of person?
Yeah. I think that I treated a bike as an adventure when I was a kid growing up. I think my parents having the jobs that they had, because my mom also taught in that town. So, they had, I think, more of like a wide lens perspective of the world and the dangers, and were very aware of the dangers, but also aware of the chaos in the world, and that there's entrusted me as a youngster. So I wasn't one of those kids that was given like too many parameters, or that they were like, we know the world is dangerous and therefore it's scary and we're going to rope you in. They were just like, good luck.
Really?
And so I had a bike that I would, just ride around. I taped like a boombox, like a mini boombox to the handlebars, and would just ride around and go like the next town over and try to find, a different kind of candy than they sold down the street from me, and would ride to my friend's house, ride to school. My mom just the other day was telling me how she got a call from the teacher because I was riding my bike to school, and that was like not allowed. It was too dangerous. And my mom was like, you're telling me that my child can't ride her bike to school? I don't know what to tell you, because she's gonna ride her bike to school, and I'm not going to ride with her, because that is what kids do. Kids ride their bikes, they get into trouble, and she's just going to do that. So this sounds like a you problem, not a me problem, and certainly not a her problem. And so I already had that in my head. And then once I worked at Rob and Charlie's and I started learning about the concept of like going for longer distances, then that I immediately was like, West Coast. I'm just going to ride my bike down the West Coast. And I did it like that Texas guy, where I just had a picnic blanket and my street clothes and one pair of chamois. And I had this t-shirt from the band Watch Them Die it was a black t-shirt, and the back of it became totally bleached from like my sweat, that I was like, I'm not going to wear like a jersey. That's not cool. And just like rode down the coast. My roommate at the time tagged along, I think, to make sure that I wouldn't die. But we didn't have a tent. We just slept outside or found people to take us in. And I loved it. It was so fun. And I think that I still try to like bring that attitude, and I still do that kind of riding. If I have like a late start to the workday in the summer, or I did it 2 Decembers ago, we had like a warm evening, and so I did it in December, even though the day was short, that I'll just go up into the woods for the night on my bike and then come into work the next morning, because it's just fun to just get weird for a little bit on your bike and just like sleep outside.
I was thinking of the notion of a bicycle is a little kid's early practice car because You're responsible for your bike. Got to keep it clean. You got to not get it stolen. It's a conveyance, so you could go somewhere, but oh, you got to ride back, you know, if you want to make it back. And then it just has that sense of like freedom or adventure. And just whatever that means for the little kid, that's what it means. Like you said, you just go out and you have an adventure and you come back. Or someone says like, oh, I got 1 hour before my wife comes home or kids or something. Okay, I'm going to use the 1 hour. I'll go ride my bike. I'll come back type of thing. Or this was the biggest one for me when you're getting into cycling and you're learning about groups in the community. Someone would say, oh, we're going to such and such on Saturday. You ever been? I never been. Come with us. Oh, I don't know where to go. It's like, you'll follow along the group. I was like, oh, okay. And then you would discover new things. And then that would open your world up even more. And then down the road, you would show someone who'd never been the route too. Be like, oh, I'll show you where it is. So the notion of adventure, I think, like we all know it is like, oh, it's freedom. We always say bicycle freedom, but it's almost just adventure because as a little kid, now your city just got 10 times bigger because now you can go ride your bike and get further places as well. And so now it like leads me to the question, like this magazine that you're the editor of, Adventure Cycling, when did that start? Did you see yourself being a magazine editor? Was this a passion of yours?
Well, so I before Adventure Cyclist, I worked for Dirt Rag, and I started. I have like written for publications and edited literary magazines, but never like a big magazine. And when I was a kid, I made zines, and so I think that my like childhood vision was of being some kind of magazine editor. But it's not what I went to school for. I didn't really have a concept. I think I was mature in a lot of ways emotionally when we went to school, but I had a concept that I wanted to be a writer, and that was like, that never faltered. But the idea of focusing my schooling around what my like career would be in terms of something that would make money, I was just like, why would I want to make money? I'm just going to work at coffee shops and bike shops and like
work at Rob and Charlie's.
Yeah. What could go wrong? That'd be amazing. And so it wasn't really a priority to get a job that made money as long as I could pay my bills. And so it seemed like kind of unachievable to become a magazine editor, especially as somebody who was like working all the time and didn't do any like internships and stuff like that, which seemed to be like the natural and necessary progression for somebody in my shoes. And then after applying a bunch of times at Dirt Rag, finally they decided to hire me for their web editor. And within like 6 months, I was promoted to the editor-in-chief of the magazine. And then we folded a year later, which not my fault. It's gonna happen anyways.
Carolyne brought down Dirt Rag. This is what I've learned from this.
It definitely weighs on my shoulders a lot, but
I remember Dirt Rag. What exactly was Dirt Rag? Was it regional? It was like it would have like cycling stories and then like stories about like a band in it.
It was
stuff like that. What exactly was Dirt Rag?
It was cool. It was really cool. It was a zine that Maurice Tierney put out, and it was like a zine that he just never stopped putting out. Like all of the things that would typically tell somebody like, you should fold this or you should take this and like go into this career. He just kept on making the zine until it became a magazine, and then it became rotating mass media and had an event and another magazine, Bicycle Times, and web platforms. And it was called the Mountain Bike Forum, but it was just a cool mountain bike magazine that I think it was kind of regional in that it didn't shy away from being based in the Pittsburgh area and being very East Coast, where so much of the cycling culture, I think, leaned towards California and towards the mountain range and that kind of like big mountain stuff that's really photogenic. Dirt Rag really leaned into being Appalachian and
kind of poor and bootstrappy,
Yeah.
and none of us made a living wage there. We all made the same, and it was embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really fun, and we had all the creative freedom imaginable. And it was really a passion project, I think, for all of us who just believed in the concept of Dirt Rag as this place that you could tell weird stories. We published, before I started there, our photographer wrote a feature on Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr., and
Ah.
like his love of bikes.
Huh.
And that was like appropriate for our magazine just because dirt rag was such a broad concept of like getting weird on your bike, which,
Yeah.
like we were talking, usually meant the mountain biking world. And it did have
Mm-hmm.
strong mountain bike roots, and we did gear reviews and all that kind of stuff. But it was really just like this cool magazine that used mountain biking as its launching platform to talk about whatever we wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm. And then that, how many years between Dirt Rag and Adventure Cyclist?
Uh, like a year and a half, I guess. I was laid off just before the pandemic, and they folded in early 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I spent a year. It was really good for me because I was going through a divorce, and like my dog had died, and it was very like, I had like sick relatives, and it was very much like a country song kind of time. And it was really, in this sad way, a good time to just like lean back and not be so rushed, to also be like meeting deadlines, and going to all these press trips and writing all these stories and catching up with writers to make sure that they were on deadline and all this stuff. I could just like do some freelancing and chill
Mm-hmm.
out. And I was freelancing writing for talk therapists, helping them make magazine or make their websites, and also worked at Just Seeds, which is a print shop art collective,
Oh.
and did that for a year and a half, and then came on to Adventures. It's Adventure Cyclist is the magazine. That's the magazine for Adventure Cycling
Ah,
Association, which is our like nonprofit. So it's
I
it's a
see.
confusing name, but I came on in in April 2021.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was reading up on it. I've watched a few interviews you did, and then I got onto this. It's on your Instagram. Also found it funny too that we were messaging. You said you gave up Instagram for Lent.
Yeah.
Like this is what Carolyn slash Buttercup would do. She's full of curveballs. She's full of
Yeah.
curveballs. This woman. Which then I thought like all the funny things. Like I grew up Catholic, so like when you said like you gave up for Lent, I was like, yeah, I remember having to give up shit as a kid. I remember one year my mom gave up People magazine, and she was like,
Ooh.
I'm doing it. Like
Did she make it?
I was like, she made it. She made it. I remember she gave up People magazine and Diet Coke one Lent. And I was like, I don't think I fully understand this religion.
Yeah.
I get it, but I think I still have 10 more questions now. So you gave up Instagram for Lent, but on your Instagram, I clicked on your link and I got onto the glossary of, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, Tanya Aibi.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a collection of poems you wrote about this woman.
It's essentially, it's a glossary of sailing terms, and each one is a prose poem that connects the sailing term and as like a definition, but also throughout the book tells the story of this woman who was the first American woman and the youngest person to ever circumnavigate solo.
I saw that. What year did this happen?
1988, I think.
Really? And how did you find this woman? How did you hear
Uh,
this story?
I think I just found her book in the library one day and was
Hmm.
like, this seems interesting, and read it. And then because I don't really know anything about sailing, I started writing notes, and then my notes became that book.
How did you come to make it in the poetry format? Did you know you wanted to do it that way? Did you want to do verse at first?
No, it's just kind of how it was written. Like those the poems themselves are what my notes were, because my background is poetry. That's what I went to school for. And so I was in a poetry class while I was reading this book, and I think that this was like my brain's way of trying to like make the connection between the two realities, because I really resonated a lot with the author. And so I was like having this emotional experience with her, but also she was doing this thing that was completely foreign to me. So I was like writing down these terms to try to understand what she was talking about, but on a deeper level, I really understood what she was talking about. And so it's like the prose poems are kind of like my brain's efforts to like connect those dots between the known and the unknown, and they ended up being these little prose poems.
Oh, I see. Where can people get this?
They can get it if justseeds.org has them. That's JEEDS. JUSTSEEDS, justseeds.org. If they are all out, then you can get them through Finishing Line Press, who's the
okay. Yeah, really interesting. I'm reading up on her name and like how she did this at 18, and then she was this bike messenger in New York City, and I was like, what year is this happening in? And then of course, like, how do you even find out about this? It's just the coolest, back to the adventure, is you just find these things and then you run with it.
And the coolest thing was I didn't expect this book to get published. Like I just wrote it for the sake of writing it, and then I submitted to this writing contest, and I submitted a book that I was very proud of, that was just like a series of poems, and then I submitted this as just kind of like an extra. And they didn't like the poems, but they liked this book. And then I was like, oh shoot, she's still alive. This is going to be super awkward for her. So I had to track her down, and somehow...
Who's this buttercup writing poems about me?
Yeah, exactly. So I tracked her down. I sent her an email and was like, hey, so this awkward thing, I wrote this book about you, but it's like about... I don't know, can I just send it to you? And so I sent it to her, and she didn't get back to me for like 3 months, and then finally wrote me back and was like, I read it and I realized that I don't understand poetry, so I had to send it to a friend of mine in England, and it took him a while to get back to me, but here's what he said. And then his letter was like, Tanya, I'm sorry it took me a long time. I've been reading this in between gardening, and I think the thing that took me so long to understand was that she's mentioning things that happened on your trip that you didn't write about in your book. And so I'm wondering how she knew about these things. And I think that this writer just channeled you, and that this book is really about her experience like through you. And so and he's like, I don't know how she was able to know this stuff other than like tapping into some collective subconscious. So Tanya's like response after that to me was like, so I think that there's no way that I can tell you to publish this or not publish it, because it's not about me at all. I am just this like vessel that you've used to tell your own story. And it's easier maybe to tell it through my name than your own. And so then here I have it, but I don't know how I knew this. I don't know what it is in the book that I wrote that's not in the book that she wrote.
I see. Oh, what a wild reaction.
Yeah.
Do you know what is Tanya's nationality? Do you know what she does now? Do you know anything beyond her history besides the messenger and the circumnavigating the world?
Well, she was from New York City.
Oh, okay.
Take this with as many grains of salt as is appropriate for that saying. I think she's living in the United States in a coastal town teaching sailing lessons.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
And I wrote this book, I was in my 20s, and so this was like 2008 or 9 that I wrote it, and then it was published in 2011. So I was like 29 when it was published. So I'm almost 41 now, so a long time ago. So who knows what she's doing at this point?
Yeah.
But
wow, what a character.
yeah,
Do you know what she looks like?
She is a middle-aged, fit woman with long blonde hair.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. What a character. Yeah. What it like makes for interesting subject matter and like a character to just dive into. It seems like you had this sort of connection that like we can't really define either. Somehow you know stuff about her adventure that only she would know, but yet you've never met or like a million miles away too.
I think it kind of spooked her out a little bit.
Oh, really? You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. How strange. Well, I have two more questions for you before I do the Rotten Tomatoes head-to-head game for you. I think you're going to find the theme very interesting too.
Cool.
Okay. What bikes do you own now?
Let's see. I have a Rad Power Rad Wagon, which is a cargo e-bike.
Oh, really? Those are cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. I would say like you said before about how bikes are like the cars for kids. I think that this like e-cargo bike is like it could really replace like 99% of the things that most people do on cars.
No kidding. Wow.
I have a Soma fog cutter. I have a Salsa Fargo.
Oh, cool. I know that model. That's cool.
Yeah, the Fargo has been on some serious adventures. That's like the bike that I am always almost going to sell and then take it for a ride, and I'm like, no, this is like this
do you
is
get
the
attached
bike for me. Yeah, very, very attached. It's currently my winter rider and has studded tires on it and stuff. I have a Kona Big Hanzo, which is it's a little small for me because the way the Kona's bikes fit, I have very long legs and a very short reach, and so to get the reach good, then the bike ends up being kind of short. So still have some like figuring out to do with that one, but it's a hardtail. And I have the prize is a Juliana, and God, what is it? The Maverick? Juliana Maverick? I'm totally blanking on the model, but
Santa Cruz, maybe? I'm trying to think who named their bikes those names. I remember there was a bike manufacturers naming their bikes women's names.
Well, Juliana is the women's specific version of Santa Cruz.
I see.
And it's the most beautiful bike I've ever ridden. And it was I went from I lost amazingly. I ended up losing a lot of my bikes in my divorce and through like one way or another. So I went from having a decent amount of bikes plus test bikes to having no bikes and no test bikes.
Oh, so, this divorce wiped you out of bikes.
Yeah, but you know what? That's life. That's how things go.
That's life. There will be more bikes. Yeah, it's not like these were your children.
Exactly.
Take the boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep the girl.
So I got the Hanzo just so I like had a mountain bike, and then almost immediately was offered the job at Adventure Cyclist. And this Juliana was my first review bike, and it's just so nice, and I love it so much. I am embarrassed that I can't remember the model name, but I haven't ridden it since fall, so it's been a while.
I see.
But it's a full suspension carbon. It's this like beautiful lavender, like soft color. And it's just so fun. It's not like a big like
What's the tire size on that? What do you have on there?
I think they're not too wide. They're maybe like 2.3s maybe. But the mountains here are it's the kind of riding where like you go up a mountain and you come down a mountain and you go up a mountain and you come down a mountain, and they're not, at least the trails that I ride, they're not too technical. They're like twisty turny, but not like East Coast riding, or some like maybe like Southern Colorado riding where there's a lot of like rocks that you have to like muscle up and maneuver over.
I see.
So you can have a bike with not too much travel and not too wide tires and be like just fine as long as you have the cardio.
What do you do? What's your bike as far as the wheel diameter? Are you 29 or the 27.5? Do you prefer one over the other?
Because I'm on the shorter side, I like a 27.5, especially because most of my height is in my legs, and so I don't have that much reach. Yeah. And when I have a 29er, that can make a bike feel kind of like boaty for me, with like a lot of stuff behind the bike, which is again like not so much of an issue up here because of the riding style, but riding on the East Coast, I just always felt like I was like catching my own tail on the back.
I see. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, smaller rider, bigger bike. The bike all of a sudden gets very long and tall.
Yes.
Like, I gotta steer a lot of bike here. I remember when 29ers came around and how much we shunned them. We were like, that's for tall people. Those are crazy. That'll catch on. And now it is the standard.
Yep.
It's almost like next time the next piece of technology comes around, be careful not to shun it because it will become the standard of technology. I remember I worked at a bike store. I was 16 years old and 9-speed on a mountain bike had just come out. And every customer was like, this is just new product. There's nothing wrong with 8-speed. They just want us to buy more stuff. The chain is narrower. It's going to break more. I have no problems with 8-speed. And then my boss said, you guys better get ready for technology to constantly be changing, because I'll tell you one thing, I never had a problem with 7-speed. And we were like, oh, right. This is a generational thing. It's going to keep going and going and going. And now we have on our road bikes now 12-speed. It's just never going to end. It's just going to just keep adding speeds.
Yeah.
Ability to do more stuff. It's just as long as we consume bikes, there will be a drive to innovate new bike stuff. So beyond that, I have no thoughts on the matter. All right, Carolyne, I have a movie game for you. We wrap this interview up. I really liked it. I've learned so much. Every interview I end with the movie game. It's a Rotten Tomato head-to-head game, but it has a theme to the guest. So this theme to you is bicycle-related movies.
Ooh.
So there's a couple ways you can score points. I'm going to read you the description of the movie, and when you think you know it, you yell out the name of the movie. And then we'll put the two movies head to head, and you got to guess which one has the higher Rotten Tomatoes score online. Okay, so here we go. Let's start with the first one. Just get into it. You've just clipped into the bike. The chain is still in the middle ring. You're just rolling out of your driveway on this one. Okay, here we go. Yell it out when you know it. Two estranged brothers attempt to make peace by taking a trip to the Rockies. There they bond over their shared enthusiasm for cycling and decide to enter a grueling bike race. One brother's health begins to fade and the other must compete without him by his side.
Oh, man.
Your head is turning.
It's not E.T. What is this? It's not Breaking Away. If I don't get it, do we just float or can you tell me?
We end the interview and we never speak again. No, you just move on. Just the game continues. Yeah, we got three total rounds.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Okay, you might kick yourself. The movie is from 1985, American Flyers.
Oh, God damn it! Yes,
this has Kevin Costner, Ray Dong Chong, Who's the other one there? Oh, this was also the era where anybody Russian was our enemy because they have to race the Russians in this one.
Yeah, I feel like an idiot for not getting that one.
American Flyers. Well, it's your first one. So, okay, here's the second movie. An eccentric, childlike man loves his red bicycle and will not sell it to his envious neighbor. While visiting a friend, his bike is stolen. Thinking it's in the Alamo, he sets off on an adventure. He encounters a waitress.
A Big Adventure.
From 1985, the movie's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. You got it. Now you're on the board. I worked at a bike store, and there was an employee there who had been there a long time, and he would quiz me. Like the first week I was there, he would go, what's your favorite bike movie? And I would go, I don't know. I don't know. And he's like, there's only one answer, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Like he would like bully me into it. And that would be like, really? That's your movie? And then he would never discuss it. So I always remember Pee-wee's Big Adventure as him. So your movies are American Flyers versus Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Which one do you think has the higher Rotten Tomatoes score?
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, you were very quick on that one. All right. American Flyers is 67%. Pee-wee's Big Adventure, 87%. 2 points on that one. All right. Good start. All right. Number 2. I think you've got a handle of the game now.
Yeah, I got it.
Local working class friends spend their post-high school days sparring with snooty students from the university. The local boy dreams of competitive bicycle racing and faces opposition as he and his friends race in the university's annual bicycle endurance race.
Is this Breaking Away?
From 1979, the movie is Breaking Away. Yes, you nailed it. 3 points for you. I remember seeing that movie and be like, this is a movie? This is awesome. Like, because it's from the 70s. You know, I saw it in 2000 or something. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is like in the theaters. Like, this is like has a story and the guy rides his bike and Dennis Quaid is like in there, like acting all cool.
And they're not making fun of them for like being into bikes.
Right.
They just make fun of them for pretending to be Italian.
Right. Yeah. The Italians are coming. The guy had the posters on the wall. I think I instantly started ripping out pages from Bicycle Magazine, started putting them on my wall when I saw this. Like, I gotta put my favorites up on the wall. All right. You got that one. Next description. A gentle alien becomes stranded on Earth and is befriended by a young boy. He introduces the alien to his brother and sister and decides to keep his existence a secret. Soon the government attempts to intervene, making a dire situation for the boy and the alien.
E.T.
Of course, 1982. The movie is E.T. Classic bicycle scene in that one. All right, so your movies are Breaking Away versus E.T. Now we're getting into the tough matchups here.
E.T.'s got to be higher rating than Breaking Away.
Okay, you're going E.T. Breaking
E.T.
Away is 95%.
Wow.
E.T. 99%. Your logic served you well there.
I am impressed that Breaking Away has 92%, though. That's
95. Yeah, that is very high. I think Breaking Away actually won Best Screenplay.
Wow.
I'd have to look it up, but I think it was like a very, very popular, still cult classic of a movie. But E.T. 99, the perfect movie, E.T.
Yeah. It really is, though. Aside from like the alien torture.
Oh yeah, that's true. There's some weird alien scenes in there. But the bike scene, I think every kid was like, I'm gonna go ride my bike when I get home from the movie theater. I'm gonna go find some jumps and get over there. Like, you get a scene of like friends cruising their bikes through homes under construction. You can't do any better than that.
Oh, it's perfect.
It's a perfect movie scene. Like, whatever Rocky was to like older kids who wanted to work out, E.T. bike scene was that to the young kids.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Last round. Description is: an unemployed man is elated when he finally finds work hanging posters around war-torn Rome. His wife sells the family's bed linens to retrieve the man's bicycle from the pawn shop so he can take the job. Disaster strikes when the bicycle is stolen. The man combs the city, growing desperate for justice.
Is this The Bicycle Thief?
Wow, you got it. 1948. The Bicycle Thief. This was the one I was like, I don't know about this one. This is kind of a deep cut, but then I remembered like, oh, we went to the college we went to. This movie would have been discussed. Yes, The Bicycle Thief. I've seen it on YouTube and I'm like, this is strange. This is cool in a way. Just odd movie. Like you study this like when you take a film class, I think.
Yeah, it's a bicycle film for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Very interesting. All right, final description. A hotshot stock exchange floor trader loses his shirt and becomes a bicycle messenger in a hilly city.
Man, I knew that you're going to pick this one, and
Ooh.
I know this movie so well, and I always forget the title.
Oh no!
It's Kevin Bacon, right?
You cannot sway me.
Yeah.
Buttercup, I am an impartial judge.
Oh God, what is the name of this movie? Yeah, I forget. I know the movie very well, and I just like I always switch the name up with Breaking Away, and then I'm like, no, Breaking Away is this one, and then forget the name of this one.
Mm-hmm. All right, the movie is from 1986. Quicksilver.
Yes.
Quicksilver.
So embarrassing.
Very. I think Paul Rodriguez is in that movie too. Like there was a part in the 80s where somebody quit their corporate job or got fired from their corporate job, and then they were doing this. And then we followed around from that. It also has a scene where the guy is apparently broke, but he lives in this awesome loft of an apartment and he gets to ride his bike around the apartment.
Freaking boomers, man.
Unbelievable.
That was an actual possibility in the 80s to be like, oh, I'm broke. I only get this 8,000 square foot loft apartment.
And I'm going to put a piano in that apartment. This is real. And I'm going to go in through the fire escape. And we're like, that looks awesome. Never leave. And then there'd always be the scene where the guy runs into his old co-workers at the high paying job. And they're like, what are you doing now, man? Riding a bike? You cruising? Delivering rich people papers?
Yeah.
It was always that scene as well. Yeah, you're right. Kevin Bacon, 1986. All right, so here we go. Final round. The Bicycle Thief versus Quicksilver.
This is a tough one. I feel like the kinds of people who would be most interested in Bicycle Thief are the sort of people who like being critical of good things.
Ooh.
And are harsher judges. And maybe that's me projecting and being a harsher judge, but I think that Quicksilver maybe has the better rating on Rotten Tomatoes because of its like pop cultural status.
Okay. Wow, you went deep on that one.
I'm pulling a wild card for a wild card.
Okay, here we go. The Bicycle Thief is 99%.
That was so wrong.
Quicksilver is 13%.
What?
You went the opposite on that one. I thought when you were giving that description, you just got the names backwards.
No, I was just completely wrong. I do not understand humans at all.
Wow. Kevin Bacon is going to be destroyed.
13%?
13. Have you ever seen Quicksilver? I wouldn't go as far to say it's a good movie.
I mean, I thought it was a really good movie, but it also, I guess that really like speaks to me in my life. And so it's, I, being like a kid in the suburbs, like loved my bike messenger friends and thought that they really had it all figured out. And so when I saw Quicksilver, I was like, I probably made that connection to like my own thinking of that lifestyle of just being able to like eat lunch outside in like the courtyard of the hospital.
Oh yeah.
Like
there'd always be that scene with the bike messenger, like grabbing lunch. He's getting a hot dog.
Yeah, just like hanging out with your friends as part of your job. That to me seemed like making it. So that's probably why I'm like, clearly everybody wants to do that, but apparently nobody wants to do that, and they all think that it's stupid. And
Bike messenger was a thing for a little while. I would say late 80s into the 90s. Like there was a thing where dudes were bike messengers.
Oh yeah.
They would take their bike into an elevator and drop off important documents. Like somehow a bicycle was the only way to get these documents across town.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was cool for a second there.
It still is kind of, I think like DocuSign is the last.
That killed bike messaging.
It kind of killed bike messenger.
Yes, DocuSign.
I worked for a legal secretary for a while, and I would carry like those last documents from like my law office over to the courthouse or whatever. But and like very rarely we would use a bike messenger. And I feel like even in just like the 8 years or so that like technology has gotten good enough that they're like, we don't need anybody. We can just have like
we don't need you,
AI
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
Damn, go back to your high-paying job. Well, Carolyne Whelan, we caught up. Buttercup, you got into cycling in Boston. We went to the same college. Turns out we worked at the same bike store, although not at the same time. She's the editor of the magazine Adventure Cyclist, and she's getting back on Instagram after Lent.
I don't know when Lent is.
What? What do you mean you don't know? But you gave up something for Lent?
Well, I knew that it was the only. Did it end at Easter?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the end.
I was raised Catholic, but I left Catholicism in like 4th grade. So
right after you beat up the kid?
I went to one of the schools where like the stuff happened, like the main priest.
What are you talking about? Oh, the stuff. Oh, with priests. Gotcha. You went to some rough schools, health teachers dealing drugs. You're beating up kids with bicycles. Stuff's going on with priests. So
I was moved from that school with the gym teacher to this parochial school, and then the stuff with priests happened. That one of the 2 priests that ended up going to jail ended up getting killed in prison, and that was when I was like, I'm out. I don't.
So why the observance of Lent then? Or do you just like that aspect of it?
I do kind of like that aspect. I think that everything, organized religion as a whole isn't for me, but I do think that there's some aspects of like having some like personal boundaries and doing something collectively that is for some kind of like personal and greater good is not a bad idea. And so the concept of not everybody collectively like losing 15 pounds and trying to do this like thing that doesn't work for everybody, or that's not everybody's goal, but okay, everybody who like decides to do this is going to choose one thing that makes sense for their life, and we are all going to do this thing, or in the case of Lent, not do this thing for this set amount of time. I think that it's like kind of this like cool collective motivation system. And
I think that's a very enlightened way of looking at it. Tell that to my mom and her Diet Coke. Thanks, Carolyne. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Bye.
That is it. That is the episode. That is running it back for this week. That was my interview with Carolyne Whelan, or as I know her, Buttercup, the sweetest girl ever. But she has an edge to her, as we found out. Don't mess with her. We went to college together, and now she's the editor of Adventure Cyclist, the magazine. So check it out if you haven't already. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, we've got a lot of new subscribers, so if you're new, give my old videos a look. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. All my interviews are up there. My stand-up clips are up there as well. And I got stand-up dates coming up as well, so check it out. Check the feed. Why don't you? So, what an interview. We learned a lot about Carolyne. We learned about her upbringing. We learned about college. And we learned how she got into the magazine and beyond. If you want to look up some of her work, go to @RoadsideFires on Instagram. And if it's after Lent, she'll be on there. Lent is over, Carolyne. Get back out there. You're free. You're free. Thank you for listening, everybody. I will see you next time.